I came home early one evening, intending to surprise my girlfriend. Instead, I overheard her laughing about her affair. That was the moment my entire world fell apart. I'm 27 years old, and for nearly 3 years, I thought my girlfriend, Kay, and I had something real. We weren't perfect, but we were a team, or so I believed. I worked long hours as a software developer for a growing startup. The job was demanding late nights, tight deadlines, constant pressure, but it paid well enough to provide us with a comfortable life in a small apartment downtown. Kay was finishing her degree while working part-time as a teaching assistant. Life was hectic. Between my job and her studies, we didn't always have time for each other, but I thought we were making it work. Sure, there were occasional arguments. What couple doesn't have those? But nothing seemed out of the ordinary. I trusted Kay, maybe too much, and because of that, I ignored the little signs I now wish I hadn't. Kay had been distant lately, but I chalked it up to her final exams. She'd often come home late, claiming she was at the library or working on group projects. I didn't think much of it. I even admired her dedication to finishing her degree. When she'd make excuses to skip our usual date nights or forget small things like calling me back, I assumed it was stress. After all, I wasn't perfect either. My demanding job often pulled me away from her. So who was I to judge? That's why last Tuesday came as such a shock. My boss had a late meeting cancel, and I left work earlier than usual. It was one of those rare opportunities where I could surprise Kay with a quiet night together. I picked up her favorite takeout on the way home, Thai food from the little place she loved, but rarely treated herself to. The thought of seeing her face light up when she saw it made me smile. I parked outside our building, grabbed the takeout, and made my way upstairs. I remember feeling hopeful, even happy, a rare feeling during such a stressful time. But as I approached the door to our apartment, I noticed something strange. The door was slightly ajar. My heart skipped a beat. Kay wasn't careless, especially about locking the door. A million thoughts rushed through my mind. Was she okay? Had something happened? Quietly, I pushed the door open and stepped inside. That's when I heard voices. Kay's voice, clear and unmistakable, along with a man's. At first, I thought maybe one of her friends had stopped by, but the tone of their conversation didn't match that scenario. It wasn't casual or friendly. It was intimate. I crept closer, my heart pounding harder with every step. He has no idea, Kay said, laughing. He's always working, so it's easy to get away with it. And even if he noticed, I could talk my way out of it. He trusts me that much. The man chuckled in response. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Kay continued, her tone dripping with mockery. It's almost sad how clueless he is. He's so caught up in work, he doesn't even realize what's going on. I stood there, gripping the takeout bag so tightly my knuckles turned white. My mind raced. Was this real? Was I misinterpreting what I was hearing? But then the man spoke. As long as it works out for us, who cares? It's not like you're ever going to get caught. That was it. There was no misinterpreting those words. My girlfriend, the woman I'd shared my life with for 3 years, was cheating on me and laughing about it in our home. A surge of emotions hit me all at once. Rage, heartbreak, humiliation. I wanted to barge in, confront them, demand answers. But as I stood there, paralyzed, another thought crept in. What would that accomplish? Nothing could undo the betrayal I'd just heard. Instead, I quietly backed out of the apartment, closing the door as softly as I could. I walked down the stairs in a daze, got into my car, and drove off. I didn't even know where I was going. My hands were shaking, my vision blurry. It felt like the world was spinning out of control. That night, I crashed on a friend's couch. I didn't tell him much, just that I needed a place to stay. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation I'd overheard. Every word cut deeper, confirming that the life I thought I had was a lie. The next morning, I made a decision. I blocked Kay on everything: phone, social media, email. I didn't even give her a chance to explain. Why should I? She'd made it clear how little respect she had for me. Her betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional, calculated, and cruel. The messages started almost immediately. Kay tried calling, texting, emailing, even sending messages through mutual friends. Each one began with confusion, then shifted to apologies and desperation. Please, let's talk. I can explain everything. It's not what you think. I love you. But it was exactly what I thought. There was no misunderstanding what I'd overheard. Kay wasn't just cheating on me, she was mocking me behind my back, treating me like a joke. In the days that followed, I threw myself into work. It was the only way I knew how to cope. But even as I tried to bury myself in coding and deadlines, the betrayal lingered in my mind. Memories of our relationship felt tainted, every happy moment overshadowed by the knowledge of her lies. Friends reached out, confused about why Kay was so frantic. They didn't know the full story, and I didn't feel like explaining it. What was the point? People would take sides, and I wasn't interested in the drama. I just wanted to move on. But moving on wasn't easy. Every corner of our apartment reminded me of her. The bookshelf we'd built together, the photos on the walls, the couch where we'd binge, watch our favorite shows, it all felt like a mockery of the life I thought we had. Eventually, I decided to move out. I found a new place across town, smaller and simpler, but free of painful memories. One evening, a mutual friend, Lisa, called me. "You know, Kay's been a wreck," she said. "She keeps saying it was a mistake and that she loves you." I let out a bitter laugh. "A mistake is forgetting your anniversary. What she did was a choice." Lisa paused. "She's begging for another chance. She says she'll do anything." "She made her choices," I said firmly. "Now she has to live with them." And so do I. In the weeks and months that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life. Therapy helped a lot. Talking to someone who didn't know Kay or our history allowed me to process my emotions without judgment. I learned to stop blaming myself for her actions. The problem wasn't that I was too busy with work or too trusting. The problem was her lack of integrity. Eventually, I found peace. It didn't come all at once, but little by little, the pain faded. I began to see the breakup not as a loss, but as a blessing. Kay's betrayal revealed her true character, and I was better off without her. One day, months later, I bumped into her at a coffee shop. She looked different, tired, almost hollow. She tried to strike up a conversation, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just smiled politely, said I was in a hurry, and walked away. As I left, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. Kay may have broken my trust, but she didn't break me. For days, I ignored her calls, texts, and every attempt she made to reach me. Every single notification from her felt like a stab in the gut, a painful reminder of the betrayal that had shattered everything I thought I knew about our relationship. I didn't need to hear her excuses, her desperate apologies, or her manipulative pleas for understanding. I wasn't interested. There was nothing left for us to say. At first, I tried to distract myself, staying busy with work, hanging out with friends, and pretending that life was still normal. But, despite all my efforts, I couldn't shake the thought of what had happened, the way she'd ripped apart the trust we'd built over the years in the most heartless way imaginable. Mutual friends tried to intervene. They reached out to me, concerned, saying that Kay was losing it and desperate to talk. They told me she was unraveling, that she regretted what happened and was begging for a second chance. They seemed to think I should feel sympathy, maybe even pity her. But I wasn't interested in saving her or in any of her melodramatic attempts to make me feel guilty. I had given her everything, and she threw it all away for a fleeting moment of passion with someone else. About a week later, I found out who the guy was. The news hit me like a sledgehammer, and I felt the air leave my lungs. It wasn't just some random fling, some nameless guy she'd met at a bar. No, it was worse. It was someone I worked with. His name was Chris, a guy I had seen around the office for years, someone who I'd always considered just a colleague. He'd been a friendly face in the break room, someone I had spoken to about work matters and casual stuff. Never in a million years did I suspect that behind all that was the seed of my relationship's destruction. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. This wasn't some stranger who had walked into my life and torn it apart. This was someone I had trusted, someone I had worked with every day, someone I had seen as a part of my circle. This was someone who had no business crossing that line. As soon as I found out, everything about our relationship shifted. It wasn't just about my feelings for her anymore. It was about the deceit, the violation of trust that reached into every part of my life, my work, my personal connections, my peace of mind. Suddenly, all the little things I had brushed off in the past started to make sense. There were those strange, offhand comments Kay had made about him, the way she casually mentioned Chris at dinner, or that time she suggested we all go out for drinks and invite him along. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but now, looking back, it was like the pieces of a puzzle had fallen into place. How did I not see it sooner? But the worst part? The truly gut-wrenching part was the revelation that Chris wasn't just betraying me, he was living a double life too. He had a girlfriend, someone who had been completely unaware of his affair with Kay. They were both lying to their partners, both playing a twisted game of deceit, both pretending to be faithful while carrying on with their betrayal in the shadows. The realization made my stomach turn. For a moment, I thought about confronting Chris at work, calling him out in front of everyone, exposing the truth for all to see. But then I stopped myself. What good would that do? Would it make me feel better to stoop to their level and create a scene? No, I had to take a smarter approach. Instead of letting the anger control me, I decided to handle things with some dignity. I went to HR. I laid out everything, every detail, every moment I had learned about their affair. I wasn't just telling them about a personal betrayal, I was telling them how it had infected the workplace, how it had blurred the lines of professionalism. Chris had crossed boundaries in more ways than one, and I wanted to make sure there were consequences. The fallout was swift. The news spread through the office faster than I expected. And before HR even had a chance to take action, Chris's girlfriend found out. She was understandably devastated and furious. She confronted him immediately, and by the end of the week, his reputation was in tatters. He was fired. His career was ruined, and I had no sympathy for him. What had he expected? To live a lie forever? As for Kay, though, she didn't give up that easily. She couldn't just let it go. She found out where I was staying at a friend's house and showed up one evening, pounding on the door, desperate to talk. My friend didn't know what to do. He asked me what I wanted, and I told him reluctantly to let her in. I wasn't ready to face her, but I knew she wouldn't leave me alone until I did. When Kay walked into the room, she was a wreck. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared, and her eyes were red and swollen from crying. She looked nothing like the woman I had once loved. She was broken, fragile, almost unrecognizable. And yet, despite everything, I could see she still thought she could get away with it. She launched into a flood of apologies, trying to explain her actions. "It wasn't what it looked like," she said, her voice shaking. "I was confused. It was a mistake. He didn't mean anything to me." But the words felt hollow, empty. She couldn't even admit to the truth. Instead, she danced around it, trying to twist the story, manipulate me into doubting what I already knew. She was lying to my face, just like she had lied to me for months. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I cut her off, my voice calm but firm. "I heard everything," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "I was there that night. I heard you laughing about me, making fun of me behind my back." Her face went pale. She stumbled over her words, her voice breaking as she tried to explain herself, but there was nothing left to say. The damage had been done, and no amount of excuses could undo it. I stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. "We're done," I said, my voice unwavering. She broke down completely, sobbing uncontrollably, begging me to forgive her, pleading for a chance to fix things. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. I had given her everything: my trust, my love, my time, and she had destroyed it all. The woman I thought I knew had turned into someone I no longer recognized. Walking away from Kay was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It felt like I was leaving a part of myself behind, a part that had been shaped by years of love and commitment. But at the same time, it was freeing. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight of her lies, her betrayal, and her manipulation was gone. And in its place, I felt a glimmer of something new, something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The weeks that followed weren't easy. I had to rebuild my life from the ground up, piece by piece. I had to let go of the future I thought we'd share, the plans we had made, the dreams that had seemed so real. It was painful, and there were times I questioned if I'd ever be able to trust again. But as time passed, I started to heal. Slowly but surely, I began to see all the red flags I had ignored for far too long. The late nights at work, the growing distance between us, the constant excuses that never quite added up. I had convinced myself that our relationship was perfect, that everything was fine, when in reality, it was anything but. Now, I'm focusing on myself. I'm rediscovering what makes me happy, what gives me peace. I'm learning to trust again, but this time, it's with caution. I know that not everyone is going to betray me, but I also know that I deserve better than what Kay gave me. I'm taking my time, rebuilding my confidence, and learning that my worth isn't tied to someone else's actions. This experience taught me the power of resilience. People can be selfish, cruel, and manipulative, but they can also be strong, determined, and capable of healing. I'm not the same person I was before. I'm stronger, wiser, and I know my value now. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've been through something similar, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this one. And remember, no matter how deep the betrayal, you always have the power to move forward.